At Sioux City 4th Academy, Principal Zhu Jinlong talks to the students, telling them that today is the start of their journey as players in the inner world. He explains that the system will decide their class the moment they step into the formation, and their fate will determine whether they become strong warriors, brave knights, quick assassins, or powerful mages. Jinlong believes that they will all grow into powerful individuals in their chosen classes. However, he then activates the transfer formation. Among the students is Kaiou, who was reincarnated 18 years ago into a Kaiji star, a parallel world that is very similar to Earth. Although this inner world was created artificially, its sudden appearance turned mankind's life upside down. Many challenging dungeons began to appear across the globe, and when humans reach the age of 18, they gain abilities through the transfer formation. This allows them to handle the dungeons better. By defeating monsters, humans level up and gain attribute points, which help enhance their powers. The system invites Kaiou to explore the inner world for the first time. It then asks if he wants to start the draw for his class. Kaiou answers yes, and inside his mind, he desperately prays to all the gods that he will get a good class. After processing, the system congratulates him on getting into a secret class, Necromancer. Kaiou feels a lot of joy when he finds this out. Because Necromancer is super rare, only a few people in the whole world have this class. They can summon many powerful undead creatures from the depths of hell with just one wave of their staff. Moreover, if they have enough mana, a Necromancer can be like a one-person army. Usually, getting a hidden class means being stronger than others. However, Kaiou decides to check his attribute page, but he is shocked to see that his spirit level is 0. As he feels sorry for himself, wondering how a Necromancer can have a spirit level of 0. The system explains that the starting attribute points are given out randomly, with the highest possible being 10. Kaiou shows his unhappiness, saying that spirit is the most important quality for a mage. He can't fight if it drops below level 5. However, the system just asks if he wants to draw for his talent. He tells the system to do what it thinks is best, knowing that even a high-grade talent is useless if his talent level is 0. Then, the system congratulates him for getting the talent called Brave Heart of a Mage, explaining that the passive effect gives him free attribute points when he defeats an enemy. Also, the active effect increases the value of his other attributes to match a certain attribute's value. Kaiou is surprised by the passive effect. He expresses his worry, saying that getting free attribute points feels almost impossible. The system agrees, explaining that these points can only be used during leveling up. Kaiou understands that, because of his current skills, he can only get free attribute points by physically attacking and defeating his enemies. He shows excitement about using the active effect to boost his attributes to their highest level. This would let him be a flexible player, getting a perfect score of 10 in all areas. He thinks that, as a beginner with 10 points in every attribute, he could make a name for himself as a legendary figure. However, if he waits to improve until his strength hits 1,000 or even 100,000, he would become a really strong, all-around warrior. Kaiou considers that if his passive skill needs physical attacks, then strength will definitely be his key attribute. Because of this, he tells the system to put all 10 points into strength. He remembers that the next step is to register and finish the beginner's task, since he can only move on to a class after doing this. The system then sends Kaiou to the place for the beginner's task, where he meets an NPC named Elaine. She tells him that she will be his guide. Thinking that Elaine is really attractive, Kaiou shows his wish to sign up and complete the beginner's task. However, she tells him that she is there to help him. Although he feels a bit nervous, he knows he can count on her. This makes him feel better, but he still hesitates. Elaine gives him his beginner's gift, which turns out to be an old robe, a novice staff, and an F-grade skill book called Skeleton Summon. Kaiou figures that the robe serves more like an accessory, and the summoning skill doesn't work well because he lacks spirit points. However, the staff seems pretty strong. With 20 strength points available, it should help him hit things. He asks Elaine what his task is, and she explains that he needs to escape the misty cave. She stresses the importance of being careful during this task, as he can't defeat any skeleton soldiers and should just look for the quickest way out of the cave. Unfortunately, Kaiou goes into the cave without listening to her. After stepping through the portal, he wonders if Elaine is still talking, but he decides to ignore that idea, thinking the beginner's task will be easy enough. As he explores the cave, confused by all the skulls, he suddenly gets attacked by a level 1 skeleton. Kaiou hits the monster with his staff, making it die right away, its head rolling on the ground. He checks the creature to confirm it's lifeless, and says that fighting without magic is pretty tough. A system message then pops up, saying that Kaiou has defeated the skeleton using physical attacks, gaining him 1 attribute point and 3 experience points. Since this was Kaiou's first time taking down a monster in one hit, he receives an upgrade passive skill called Miracle of Might. He feels lucky to get such a skill and looks at its effects closely. The system shows that each point in the player's strength can turn into 2 points of attack power. Kaiou understands that strength controls how much damage he does, while defense reduces damage taken. Normally, 1 point in strength equals 1 point of attack power. However, with this skill, if his enemy has no defense, he can do 42 damage in one hit. He shouts, "It's amazing that the real value of the skill is using 1 point of strength as 2. Without warning, a bunch of skeleton soldiers burst out from the ground to attack him. Upon seeing them, he decides to focus on finishing his task. The soldiers look like the last enemies he faced, immediately starting their attacks with swords. However, Kaiou skillfully uses his staff to deal 20 damage, defeating them. After taking down 4 of these skeleton soldiers, he receives an award of 4 attribute points and 12 experience points. Kaiou also levels up to level 2 as a Necromancer, and because this is his first level up, he gets an extra 5 attribute points. This makes him feel happy, as he figures that, when adding the 4 attribute points from defeating the skeletons, his strength has jumped by 30 points. He thinks that for a regular skeleton soldier, it would be impressive if they had even 10 points in one attribute. However, he starts to wonder if the skeleton soldiers in this foggy cave are meant for farming levels, because that would seem too easy. Just then, something big exploded from the ground, a level 3 skeleton captain. This creature, although still a standard monster, boasts 50 health points and 15 strength points. However, its abilities are impressive, but they might not be enough to defeat stronger foes. Because of this, players must strategize carefully. Kaiou sees a possible problem. If the skeleton hits him, he figures that, because it has only 1 agility, he should start the attack. He jumps forward to face the captain. However, the captain skillfully uses his shield to defend himself before swinging its long spear at Kaiou. Quick on his feet, Kaiou dodges the attack, surprised by the skeleton captain's skill to hit while also protecting itself. The captain's spear smashes into the floor with a lot of force. As it pulls its weapon from the ground, Kaiou spots an opening and quickly lunges, aiming for the skeleton's belly. He manages to slice the captain in half, watching it fall to the ground. In a bold move, Kaiou jumps to deliver the finishing blow, shouting, "Try blocking this." His strike hits so hard that the captain loses all 50 of its health points, which leads to its defeat. After this, Kaiou gains 3 attribute points and 10 experience points. He thinks about the captain's great strength, making him wonder how the others will handle the beginner's task. As he thinks, a round yellow object suddenly appears in front of him. Upon closer inspection, he realizes that it is in fact a monster core. However, he wonders why it showed up, because it seems unusual. Although he feels curious, he also feels a bit cautious about this strange find. Kaiou remembers that the principal mentioned there might be a chance to get a core drop after defeating a monster. Random rewards can be gotten when it's opened. He opens the core and gets a skeleton fist set, which is a D-grade disposable item. This item, when used, ensures a 100% chance of critical damage on the next hit. Kaiou thinks it would have been better if it wasn't disposable. However, skeletons start to rise from the ground to attack again. He is shocked by the growing number of skeletal soldiers surrounding him and hitting from different directions. Kaiou realizes that, even at level 2, his health points are just about 20, so he has to be super careful to dodge hits. He moves quickly, taking down the skeleton soldiers with just one hit each. After defeating them, Kaiou levels up again, thinking it's lucky that the skeletons only have 1 point in agility. Meanwhile, while Kaiou fights, all the other students manage to escape the dungeon and complete their beginner tasks. The students are all bragging about the classes they have awakened, but one student wonders why the principal hasn't announced anything yet. When everyone is outside, they ask if someone is still inside and the others laugh, questioning how long it could possibly take to finish such a simple task. Another student commented that, although the skeleton soldiers are strong, they move so slowly that the students will not get caught. However, if someone fails and dies inside, that person will laugh uncontrollably. As they talk about this, a student, who seems to be a friend of Kaiou, shows concern and tries to reassure himself that there is no way anything bad has happened. Back inside the dungeon, Kaiou has just finished off the last skeleton. He wonders if they are all dead and why there has been no notification for task completion. Suddenly, a voice yells, "How dare he?" and the skeleton heads lying on the ground start to float in the air. Kaiou stands there, watching in amazement as the skulls begin to fuse together, eventually turning into a massive skeleton monster. This creature is called the Level 10 Skeleton King. Kaiou is shocked, thinking about why a boss would show up in a beginner's task. He wonders if the goal is to wipe out all newbies. However, while he thinks about this, the Skeleton King lifts his staff, getting ready to hit Kaiou. Although the moment looks bad, Kaiou realizes he must act fast because his life depends on it. Kaiou skillfully dodges the Skeletal King's attacks, making the ground crack beneath him. He sees himself as lucky to have gotten away unharmed, because if he had been hit, his fate would have been sealed. He realizes that the creature isn't very fast. This is his only edge. However, its defense is impressively high, around 60. He isn't sure if he can break through such strong protection. With resolve, Kaiou swings his staff at the beast, lowering its health points. He thinks that if he can land 10 more successful hits, victory will be his. Persistently, he attacks the creature, draining its health, while the monster tries to fight back. But Kaiou skillfully avoids its strikes. He wonders if this monster is only here to scare beginners, leading him to think he should keep attacking. Suddenly, the creature roars that it has protected the cave for many years, claiming that this is the first time a player has been able to breach its defenses. It expresses sadness that it wouldn't be so weak if fewer of its soldiers had been defeated. However, a beginner like Kaiou has still managed to challenge its strong defense. This is surprising because not many can do that. Although the odds seem against him, he persists. The monster says that Kaiou cannot survive, and it launches another attack against him. However, Kaiou skillfully dodges, wondering why the creature seems to have extra strength and speed all of a sudden. The monster lunges at him, but he manages to avoid it, knowing that a direct hit is no longer a real threat. Instead, he has to first limit the monster's movement. As they go deeper into the dungeon, Kaiou notices that the boulder behind the monster is about to collapse. The Skeleton King strikes again, making him sprint toward the boulder. When he stops in front of it, he starts to taunt the monster, daring it to come at him. This provocation makes it angry and it strikes back, but Kaiou finds that he can't fully dodge the attack this time. He feels a sharp pain, thinking that the monster just grazed him, yet his health points drop quickly, forcing the monster to charge at him once more. Summoning his will, he moves his body, successfully dodging the blow and making the monster crash into the boulder. Although Kaiou expected this outcome, the boulder starts to crack and fall on the monster, which results in a further loss of its health points. However, this was not entirely surprising. Because the situation was tense, it was clear that the monster would be affected by the boulder. But Kaiou knew that it wasn't over yet. Kaiou thinks he must finish this task quickly before it comes back, and he feels driven to do it in one try. After that, he uses the skeleton fist set he got from the core, and in the end, he beats the Skeleton King. The system tells him he has completed the beginner's quest, congratulating him for officially becoming an inner world player. It also says that Kaiou has been given 30 free points, plus 10 extra points for using a physical attack, and he has moved up 3 levels because of his first kill. He gets the boss equipment, which is the Ring of the Skeleton King, a grade C item that boosts his normal attack damage by 50%. Although Kaiou thinks it's not as strong as the fist set, its big advantage is that it can be used again. If he decides to sell it, it could bring in a few $100,000. He remembers the system saying that this is the first time the Skeleton King has been defeated, which makes him wonder how others got past the challenge. However, even with his curiosity, he chooses not to think about it too much and leaves the cave through the portal. Kaiou suddenly finds himself teleported to where his friends are, and his anxious buddy Xiangdi immediately hugs him. Surprised, Kaiou asks why Xiangdi is being so affectionate. However, Xiangdi explains that it took Kaiou a long time to finish the task and adds that he almost thought Kaiou had died. Kaiou is shocked to hear that the rest of the group has already completed the mission, and Xiangdi says it's been 3 hours since the last person came out. After this, Kaiou asks Xiangdi about his class, and Xiangdi humorously claims he is a mage. Yet, Kaiou finds this strange and wonders if they all went through the same thing. The class representative, Malfei, then walks up to Kaiou and mocks him for being the last one to leave. He says that all Kaiou has is his looks, which, in this case, means very little when talent is what really matters. Fei then questions if Kaiou knows what class he belongs to, but Kaiou is still confused about why Fei seems to want to provoke him. The principal later announces that everyone is officially registered. The whole class will start beginners training the next day. He suggests they introduce themselves, explain their class and talents, because this will help them understand each other better. However, some students might feel nervous about sharing, but it's important to connect. Although it could be awkward at first, it will get easier as they go along. Zhao Ziyu proudly states that she is both a mage and a healer, while Zuoyu claims she acts as a shield, with her talent ranked at B. Similarly, Fei calls himself a swordsman, also having a B-rank talent. Because of this, the other students start to praise him as their leader. The main reason a student with a B-rank talent is seen as a prodigy is that this group of students seems quite impressive. When it's Kaiou's turn, he tells them he is a necromancer. However, he finds it hard to share the details of his talent. Curiosity fills the students as they think about what a necromancer means, and the principal looks eager to explain that such a talent is often hidden. There was one case of a necromancer who completely destroyed a whole union, a fact that leaves the students very surprised. Fei, especially, tries to calm his nerves by saying it doesn't really matter if Kaiou's talent is kept secret, because mages are known to be sensitive and scared of being too close to others, which might lead to their end. Fei thinks that necromancers are actually more vulnerable than the average person. This is because the long casting time of their summoning spells makes them defenseless. However, they need allies to protect them during this time. Although they have powerful magic, they can easily be targeted without help. He remembers that Kaiou didn't have the same level of talent, and he thinks about whether this is because of its low rank. This makes you feel embarrassed when talking about it. At the same time, the other students praise Kaiou for being modest, although he secretly has a class that most people don't know about. They say he has a down-to-earth attitude. However, Yu thinks that a necromancer who can't even cast one spell is only a little more powerful than a regular person. He believes that, because he doesn't have the skills to defend himself during training, he shouldn't make a big deal about it. The principal watches Yu and feels sure that once Yu finishes the beginner's training, he will definitely qualify for the top university in the country. After the introductions, the principal says they should go home and get ready for the training set for the next day. As Xiangdi walks next to Kaiou, he says how cool he is. He asks why Kaiou didn't try to become a necromancer, pointing out that he has at least 8 points of spirit and that his other attributes are pretty good. He wonders if his talent is not enough, and Yu, who has 0 spirit points, says it doesn't matter because hard work can make up for it. He looks at all of Xiangdi's attributes and, noticing they are all single digits, he thinks about whether having 76 points makes him like a god. When he gets home, Kaiou announces that he's back. He always does this whenever he returns. However, he is the only one in the house because his parents have disappeared. In his memories, his parents often said that when they came back, he would remember them as good and kind. When he was 6, they told him they were going to the capital, but they suddenly vanished, leaving him an orphan. Kaiou holds a picture of them and thinks about where they could be, as it has been 12 years since that day. He decides that he needs to get into the university in the capital to find out the truth. The next day, the principal talks to the students, sharing his main wish about the training. If they think they can't succeed, they should leave right away. The students are shocked by this statement. However, the principal continues to say that it's better to mess up during the training than to risk dying. But there is no reason to worry, because it usually isn't that dangerous and no one is expected to die. He then mentions a significant exception, recalling a past traumatic event where a single rookie led to the complete disappearance of a class of 40. He explains that they seemed to vanish into thin air, and to this day, the details of that frightening world are still unknown. All we know is that it was called the Nightmare Village. Although the students look clearly disturbed, the principal insists that there's no need to take this too seriously. As long as they leave the inner world on time, they should be fine. He tells them to prepare, because they need to go in as soon as the stopwatch hits 0. Eventually, the students find themselves in the inner world. It resembles a village. Some express that the atmosphere feels unsettling. However, Faye reassures them that he will safeguard them all. Although there are some fears, this makes them feel a little better. Because of his words, they start to feel more at ease.